What's up, guys? My name's Doofus Mcdooface, and today I'm going to be discussing 4 ways to increase your elo. These are things that pushed my game to the top, got me to 3,000 elo for the first time ever. I wouldn't say that they are advanced level. I'd say they're more intermediate, but I still think that everybody watching can take a little bit from this. This will be a lot of game theory. Hope you guys enjoy. Hope it's helpful. Let's hop right into it. So number 1 is using the meta masterminds and the meta builds. You may have seen me posting quite a few Tree of Life videos lately. Tree of Life Canopy, Tree of Life Gates, Tree of Life Spectral Scallywag. They're the cheesiest builds, right? These are the cheesiest of cheesy builds you can get, right? You Tree of Life, get a unit like this, and you can literally hold 135 under to no send, 300 under if they send. It's broken, right? And that's something that I think we should all, until it's patched, until it's nerfed, really abuse it. Like, if your plan is to increase your elo maximally, right? Look, it just will never die. It just will never die, right? Same thing with the canopy. It just won't die. It makes for super long waves. You can just push workers to no send, right? This is just the Tree of Life Scallywag I'm focusing on right here. But I think we can use that in a lot of ways, right? If you know that some type of cheese you've seen the Angler Steed, you saw the Flower Angler, the people that you're playing against always lock in Poe to Mask and they're beating you, don't be afraid to just do it, right? I think that's something I really realized this season, specifically when the December patch came out. I realized how weak the king was. So you know what I did? I played Kingsguard like 5-6 games in a row, and that's when I got my all-time high, right? That is how I got 3,000 elo. That's my all-time peak, and I just spammed this Kingsguard mastermind. Now, yes, it is 42% win rate now, but when it just came out, that's all I was playing, and then I stopped. I lost that momentum. I stopped abusing the meta. And I think for me personally, although I don't like doing the cheesy castles, the redraws, the chaoses. I know I talked about that in my tier list for masterminds. But I do wish, if my plan was, as we're saying here, right? If my plan was to increase my elo, if next season I want to hit 4K or top 10, I'm just going to abuse it, right? I'm going to abuse those masterminds that I know have the highest win rate. And I think if you're looking to increase your elo the highest, I would say just abuse it, right? Like, if you feel like Fiesta is weak, but that's your main, if your point is to gain the most elo, I would step away and I'd start using the cheeses, right? I would look up drakbot.com. That's where it has all the mastermind win rates, and I'd start playing the things that have the highest win rate, you know? I mean, it might not be the most fun unless you enjoy winning, right? Then it can be the most fun. So that's the first thing I'd say to work on. Whenever I get really good with a mastermind, I mix it up. And I think if my point is to reach the highest elo, I should not mix it up, right? Like Castle, I usually win with, but I've only played maybe 10, 15 games this whole season, right? I really don't think I play it that much, right? Like Castle, 12-9. That's it. Redraw, 12-8. My highest win rate things I stay away from because I don't want to feel like I'm doing something that's unfair. But if the point is to gain the most elo, to win the most, I would do that. If you're watching me and you win 80% of your games at Castle, just keep playing. That's what I would say, right? Just like me, like I think I've won 4 games in a row with Tree of Life nonsense. That's Tree of Life Canopy, Tree of Life Scallywag. These are the 2 that really have helped me at the start. And I've lost quite a few games to Tree of Life Kingpin, right? This guy was like 800 under. He was 800 under on 11, and he held to a full send. I had like 6 Robos. I had like a Brute, and he held like 800 under because Tree of Life Kingpin is insane on 11. It's crazy. And that was just a smart player abusing the meta. That's just a smart play. You got to respect it. And if you want to win, maybe do it yourself. All right, guys. The second way that we can improve our win rate at Legion TD2 is going to be understanding workers pre-10 versus post-10. So, if you buy a worker, which costs 50 gold, pre-10, it gives you 1 worker, right? It increases the amount of Mythium you gain per every 10 seconds by 1, all right? And that's cool. But what happens on wave 11 is it starts scaling, right? The workers start scaling. And once you understand that, you can really take your mid-game play to the next level, right? So now it's wave 11, and I think there's actually a little bit of time delay too, right? I'm at 21 right now. It's still only 1 worker. And there. So I think it's about after 10 seconds. If you wait about 10 seconds after wave 11 starts, now workers are going to be 10% increase, right, per wave. So now you're going to be getting 1.1 workers. So understanding that workers mean more in the mid game is critical. It's absolutely critical to the outcome of the game. Because you could have a game that was pretty close, right? Pretty close early on. Your team has 30 workers combined. The enemy team's got 29 workers combined. It's pretty dead even. Power score is pretty close. Nothing big. Then your team sends wave 11, right? And I've got an example of this too. Your team sends on wave 11, right? Workers 13, 11, 14, 13. We're actually a little bit behind on workers. Your team sends on 11. What does this mean? That means the opposing team gets to push these increased workers, right? They're getting to push these increased workers while you're still stuck at your pre-10 workers. This is massive, right? So in a situation like this where I then leak, right? I leak, yes, my teammate holds. The opposing team went from having pretty much dead even workers to just pushing really hard post 11, right? Because now the workers are worth more and we incomed. Now the opposing team is double my workers, right? And on Hopsky, almost double his workers. So even as we catch up, the opposing team had so much more worker scaling. So how can that affect your game? How can you use that to your advantage or disadvantage? I'd say being more strategical about sends after wave 11, right? Or during wave 11, right? So wave 10, waves 1 through 10, maybe you income king, right? You've played the game really boring, really basic, nothing too special. Then wave 10 ends and you and your teammates say, hey, let's go ahead and save. And this is the exact reason that you might want to save, right? And that'll actually lead me into my next part of the discussion, right? Which is going to be saving Mythium, if done right. And that's exactly the right way to do it. Is if you save Mythium, specifically, there are other opportunities in the early game. If you specifically choose to save Mythium in the mid-game, what I mean is waves 11 to probably 16 or 17, right? If you save Mythium during that time, you're going to be able to push the better workers, right? Because theoretically, you're going to get these 1.1s, these 1.2s, the 1.3 workers, right? Which give you more Mythium for the same gold cost. And we know that, I mean, power mercenaries are just so strong too. So not only are you going to generate more Mythium because workers matter more, you're also going to put more pressure on your opponents, right? And it's going to increase the chances that you win the game. So let's look at a game situation where saving Mythium actually worked to our benefit. Now, we all know me, Doofus Income Kinger, right? I always income king. And I think that's fine when we're talking about the discussion of workers pre-10 versus post-10. So a game like this, we're just income kinging pretty much the whole pre-10. The whole pre-10 income king, maybe one aggressive send here, there. And here's that wave 11. Here's where I really think the game decisions matter. Now, the opposing team saves, good for them, right? That's the correct play, and they should save for a while. Maybe 12, maybe 13, as long as they can, right? We also should start saving. Unfortunately, in this game, both teams sort of do not very long saving, right? This is what sort of holds us from being pretty darn good players to the elite of the elite players. So the opposing team leaks us, right? On wave 11, we leak. We also just income king. And now this is where those workers, right, as we just discussed, those post wave 11 workers start kicking in. So Hopsky, he pushes 3 workers. He gets 3.4 workers, right? Because you get more, right? You're getting more bang for your buck on the workers after 11. I push 5 workers, giving me 5.6 workers, right? So now I'm generating more Mythium, and this is the exact situation where we want a long save, right? We've got some king. We just held reasonably well to their aggressive send where we income kinged. Now's a great time to save. The key thing to saving, though, is finding a mutually beneficial wave to send for you and your teammate against your opponents. So we can sort of look at this build, right? I'm sending into, as we know, one of the metas, right? Angler Steed. It's got tons of kingpins, so I can never send 12, right? If we're just focusing on my guy, we can't send wave 12. Wave 13, maybe we could send. Maybe we leak them, right? Maybe. I mean, his teammate is just Magician Disciple, which is decent on 13. But with a hard enough push, maybe we would have gotten them. But then there's a second part to this, right? So not only do you have to think about when should we send our opponents, you also need to take into account when would our opponents send us. So as we could see starting on 11, right? I'm Magician LOD, right? Hopsky is Grarl Avenger. We're also pretty overbuilt, so we're never scared of 12, just like they're not going to be scared of 12. And Hopsky's got a Sovereign for 13. I'm also overvalued, so I'm not scared. So 14 is really the only wave that we have to think about, right? I would love to go wave 15 or wave 16 into these guys, right? Yes, 13 looks decent, right? It does look decent, but then we're also so strong that do we really need to send 14, right? That's where saving Mythium is sort of the next level gamble for reward. Are you going to leak if you save, right? And this game we took the risk because Hopsky is Ocean Templar Sovereign with Magician. He's only a little bit under. I'm actually overbuilt, even though my build is kind of weak. And our saving Mythium hit the end, right? It was decided by everybody in the game that we would all save for wave 15, right? We haven't received a send, so we can't save an additional wave. But because Marak is very weak on 15, right? And LaQuisha's relatively strong, but relatively under, right? We decided, okay, we're just going to send wave 15. And it worked, right? Our long save paid off because we went for a wave where Marak was extremely weak. And LaQuisha, although a relatively strong 15 build, was not good enough, right? It just wasn't quite good enough, and we were able to win the game. So this is just one game of many, right? One game of many where long saves can win you the game. They can lose you the game, right? At some point, right? Here's another. Ooh, this is a pre 11 long save. We went for a really long one. We played this game really aggressive. So although the workers post 11 would be the most advantageous time to save Mythium, you can do it early, right? You can do it early, but It's a bit of a greater risk, especially if you're playing a Doofus Mcdooface who just income kings the whole time, right? Because they can then outscale you. But in this circumstance, we go from wave 7 into wave 11, right? Because there's Legion spells, there was Overwork, there was Counterattack, which made sending on wave 11 worth it, right? Also, as I discussed in the previous circumstance where we're trying to see how strong are we, right? Can we save another wave? In most circumstances, when you receive a send, most circumstances, you probably don't need to send that next wave now, right? So where we were originally aiming for wave 10, our opponents send us big wave 11, Hopsky holds, I do a very nice job. Now we have so much pressure. We have so much pressure that we might as well just save another wave and just go and try to end the game, right? So we're trying to end the game on 11. We have more workers than them, right? We have more workers than them. And we go for a big wave 11 send. We don't quite kill them, but we've put pressure because we've saved Mythi, right? And then it's right back into another long save, right? Now it's both teams just ready for another long save. Everybody's fine with the 15, where we then, once again, win. So yeah, I mean, saving Mythium, there's a lot to it, right? There's so many layers to saving Mythium. You're possibly enabling your teammate. You're hurting your income, right? Like, you're losing out on income because you're saving Mythium, but you're also hurting your opponent. So you really have to weigh the pros and cons of saving Mythium. Is this going to be beneficial for the game? Is this going to hurt my game, right? Some games it's maybe not worth the save, but I think in most games, saving Mythium will work if you do it correctly, right? Maybe not in the early game, but in the late game, it's almost always advantageous and necessary, right? But the final thing that's going to increase your elo is understanding the power and weakness of overbuilding and overvalue. And I mean, I think we just looked at a game like that, right? We just looked at the game where overbuilding, right, in the mid game, right? This was a mid game situation. Overbuilding in the mid game was actually quite good, right? Like, I'm 130 over, Hopsky's 115 over. It was good, right? It helped us to save longer, right? We weren't going for the 13 send, right? We were saving a long time. So us not pushing too hard was good, right? But there are circumstances, right, where overbuilding and being overvalue would not be advantageous, right? And so we need to sort of look at, in this game, like, I love this game. Had we been overbuilt on wave 12 and then we still choose to send wave 13, this would have been a mistake. We should have been over pushing, right? We should have been pushing workers if we were going to send 13. Now, in this circumstance, we did the correct thing. We did not overbuild, and it worked out correctly. That was good for us, right? But now, let's look at some of the downsides of overbuilding. So once again, we're looking at another meta, right? But now, let's look at the downsides of overbuilding in the game state. In this game, once again, we had Steed, Angler, right? And I'm receiving from Merak, right? This is Doofus Mcdooface. I'm receiving from him. And I can just hit tab space and see that, oh, he's overbuilt here, right? He's overbuilt. So I'm able to just keep pushing these workers and be relatively undervalued with no punishment, right? Now he's 80 over. Now I know that he's 80 over, and he real sends me. So he did the exact opposite thing that I described, where if you were going to send aggressively, you probably want more than 4 workers, right? You need to over push for your save, not overbuild for your save, right? If you're going to go sooner than later, right? Had he gone for like a wave 9, then maybe it makes sense that he's overbuilt. So in this situation, I'm going to punish Merak. Merak goes for the Kingpin, only on 4 workers. I hold his baby send, and watch what happens to my workers. I go from 8 to 13 workers. So by playing overvalue, it actually is going to punish their team. I'm now punishing their team by just me full pushing and knowing that I'm never really going to get hurt, right? I'm never in any danger because I can just hit tab space and see, oh, he's 308 over, right? He's 4 or 5 workers. He's still 273 over. He's 7 or 8 workers, right? So I'm double the workers of Merak because he's playing overbuilt, right? So when you choose to play overvalue, it can backfire, right? There's weakness to it. Are you going to hold every send? Yes. Are you going to allow your opponent to push if they have that game state, that game knowledge? Yes. Now there's also other bad circumstances to overbuilding, and that is the Bigwig. Now Bigwig, like Sakura, even like Kingpin, right, gives you pretty much overvalue games, right? You are going for more value generation as opposed to workers, right? And that can work, but it can also have major downsides. This game was one of those games. I choose to go double Bigwig, and it's going to backfire big time. Even though I'm overbuilt, it backfires. And there's a couple reasons that this game backfired. The first reason is that I had no tanks for my overbuilding, right? I invested too much in the overvalue, right? Invested too much in Bigwigs. And on this wave 7, I hold. While being 150 over, you better hold 150 over. But my Bigwigs both died. So even though I'm 150 over, I have fewer workers than my opponents. I didn't even generate extra value. It backfired, right? And then it would go on to backfire even more on the following wave when I'm now on value, right? I'm on value, but what do we know about Bigwigs? What do we know about Sakuras? What do we know about bounty hunters, right? Bounty hunters and anglers. It says that you're on value, but you are not, right? These are the 3 biggest units, right? I guess if you counted an egg sack, right, before it hatches. These are the 3 biggest units that you might be on value and you are absolutely under. And that is what happened. I'm 5 under. You see that value, you're thinking, oh, I'm great here, right? I even have a Tantrum Hellraiser, and I leak the whole wave and just completely collapse my game, right? I completely collapse my game. Now I'm still overbuilt, but I still have the fewest workers in the game, and I'm probably in last place. I did not overvalue correctly this game, right? And I mean, look, we're getting long saved, right? We just discussed it earlier. We're getting long saved while I'm the fewest workers, right? Trying my best to save my Bigwigs. And again, I leak on value on 14 again. I have so much value and I keep leaking because you have to understand. You have to understand overvalue. Just hear me out on this. Just let me play with this for a second. There's a difference between overvalue with good units and overvalue with weak units. What does that mean? That means this is perfect, right? That means that you can easily hold with the right units, right? Plus 36, right? Even gets 40 more Mythium than me, right? Skills here with Kingpins, Shadow Dancers, right? His overvalue units are now worth something, right? He's overvalue. He easy holds, easy covers. It's amazing. I'm on value with 2 crappy units, which are, what, 300 gold apiece. That's 600 gold. But it's 600 fake gold, right? So although it might say I'm overvalue, I'm really not. I'm really undervalue. And as you play this game more often, you're going to start to learn that Sakura's on 14, Sakura's on 7, right? How many Sakuras have died wave 7 or wave 8, right? You have to understand that just because you're overvalued doesn't mean you have good value for that wave, right? And so I really think we all need to think about that in this future season, right? If I'm going to play the overbuild am I still going to hold 200 over? Because if you're not going to hold 200 over on 14, what's the purpose of you having these Bigwigs or these Sakuras, right? There's a major downside to that. All right, guys, those were the 4 ways that I hope can increase my elo as well as yours going into the next season. I'm just going to discuss them one more time just in the hopes that I explain them well enough. This is mostly just game strategy, and I hope that it's beneficial to both of us. So once again, we talked about the meta masterminds. I'm discussing like Kingsguard for me. I know Kingsguard was really strong. With the upcoming season, Saboteur, right, might be really strong. I mean, 7 income is crazy, right? Still abusing Tree of Life everything, right? Tree of Life everything is amazing. Abusing Angler Steed. I really think that abusing the meta is going to be the easiest way to win. And although it might not feel good until it says victory, it's probably one of the safer ways to win. So I think that's a great way to keep winning. Also, workers pre-10 versus post-10, right? Just because you're behind a little bit pre-wave 10 doesn't mean you're instantly going to lose. Counter, just because you're a little bit ahead and you have more workers pre-10 doesn't mean that you're guaranteed going to win the game, because if that mid-game, right, if that post-10, when wave 11 workers hit, if you're not sending correctly, saving correctly, pushing correctly, you can easily fall behind and lose the game. So knowing the correct way to push in the early game versus the mid-game is just vital to winning most games. It just is. And I mean, that's sort of massively connected, right? Not sort of, it is massively connected to saving Mythium, right? Saving Mythium, although I really didn't focus on it the early game, can be useful, right? But saving it in the mid game is it's just so integral to winning, right? Because of the additional worker value. Because workers generate more Mythium post 10, saving becomes 10x more important, right? Because once you send your opponents and they get to push, their push is not the same amount of push it was pre-10. It's an increased, it's a compounding amount, right? The workers are compounding every wave and becoming stronger and stronger, which means their Mythium is compounding. So you really got to be careful about sending on the right wave and saving on the right waves, specifically in the mid game, but also in the early game, to prevent you from getting long saved, to prevent you from falling too behind in workers. Yeah. And then I know we had to talk about playing overvalue, right? Overvalue with Bigwigs, overvalue with Sakuras, right? Maybe I didn't do a perfect job on it. Luckily for me, I couldn't find that many games recently where I leaked 200 or 300 over on 14 with 2 Sakuras or 3 Bigwigs, but it happens. It happens quite a bit. I've done it. I've seen other people do it. You can easily leak overvalue on those waves. But I really didn't talk about the sort of upside. How if your teammate gets absolutely blasted and you have a good overvalue build, right? Let's say your gates, Ocean Templar gates, and you're 250 over, you easy hold the send, your teammate leaks 100%, you're able to cover in the mid. Or you're like Hades, right? You have Lord of Death with all the dragons, you're overbuilt, you full cover you and full cover your teammate. That can have benefits, right? Overbuilding can have benefits, but if you're gonna play overvalue, you better have a strategy to not leak 200, 300 over. I did that a lot, and that will not increase my elo. That will decrease my elo for the upcoming season, so I'm gonna try to avoid that. Now, if you enjoyed this video and were able to take something positive from it, please leave me a like or a comment. Also, if there's some criticisms or some things that need to be better explained, you know, maybe want one of these 4 things to be just a full video. Doofus, I want you to just talk about overbuilding and overvalue for 30 minutes. Please let me know in the comments. Maybe I can do that. But I do hope that this is beneficial for the upcoming season for both you and me. And let's keep playing Legion. Thanks, guys and girls.